Hey everyone, my name is Julie Tyler. I am the founder of Storybold, and today for IG Live, I'm going to be bringing on a guest speaker to talk about his work. So his name is Joel Schueler. He'll be joining in just a moment. And Joel and I met on Instagram, and I reached out to him. We've had a couple of exchanges on different topics related to writing. And eventually I read his novel. It's called Jim and Martha, a novel on eco-living. And I really enjoyed it. I want to bring him on and let him tell us a little bit about his writing and what writing means to him and what he's working on. So I'm going to bring him in just a second. And I really look forward to what he has to say and sharing some of his ideas with those of you who follow me on Instagram. So I'm bringing him in right now. Hey.
Hi, hi Julie.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good to finally meet you. Yeah, by video anyway.
Yeah,
But yeah,
likewise. Likewise. Um, yeah, I was just telling my audience that I really enjoyed your novel, and I just wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about that, as well as some other things that you're working on and writing in general. So, how about you start telling us a little bit about Jim and Martha, a novel on eco living, like what it's about, what inspired you, and things like that.
yeah. So Jim and Martha was actually started, believe it or not, about probably about 11 years ago now, and it took a long time to sort of realize I wasn't a part-time writer and to sort of do it more as like a full-time thing. I just used to write bits here and there, and then it was and then at the time I was dissatisfied with um, just having jobs that I didn't really enjoy, and I started looking at different like alternative lifestyles, if you like, alternative ways of being and
Yeah.
living. And I was already quite into meditation and mindfulness and stuff like that, and yeah, there was a slightly kind of evil twist to it as well because I just, I mean, I'd also read about like the Manson family as well, and about the murders on like the hippie commune. And although it was, a very sort of grim thing, I just like the idea before all the grim stuff happened of like these people in California going to this kind of hippie commune. I thought that's pretty cool. And then I also just, yeah, I just started reading about how people lived without much money, or um, I discovered eco villages, and I was just quite inspired by all these different people and these alternative lifestyles. But yeah, unfortunately, not quite as brave as them to actually live like that myself. But try and incorporate like a few things, like just trying to sort of be a bit more eco-conscious, kind of recycle a bit more, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And then yeah, so it kind of went from that really. That was the interest, and then I kind of took that, and then sort of my interest in mainly kind of modernist, postmodernist literature,
Mhm.
just stuff that was a bit different from the norm, really, and um, and then also just like some humor and some quirky, silly stuff as well. I was also kind of a bit tired of like the whole what I perceived as like the sort of established literary scene, and about I don't know, it was for me it was just taking itself a bit too seriously, so I just thought I'd write a silly book. But but yeah, although it does, I mean, Jim and Martha does have kind of like a sort of quite an eerie undertone, and like there's some sort of like quite unpleasant characters and behaviors and stuff. But there's also, and quite psychological mental health stuff, but then there's also quite um, a humorous edge to it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of a blend of all those different things, really. Yeah. Um, yeah.
What I really admired about it was, of course, the setting of it. I just thought it was fascinating that this couple, I guess, decides they're gonna go live on this community where, like you said, they don't consume a lot or they don't use a lot of money. And they try to just get on with things. And what I was really fascinated about was not only the setting but their relationship and just how it they would kind of come apart and then come back together, and
Mhm.
ultimately they weren't going to be together, the two main
Mhm.
characters.
Mhm.
But I was really interested in, like, do you think it was the setting that really did them in, just living in this commune, or was it already doomed to begin with, and then the setting, like placing them in this place, just.
I, I think their relationship was probably doomed to begin with
Yeah.
because Jim was just quite an unpleasant character.
Right. Yeah.
um, and Martha, although she kind of starts off, I think she's a more, well, to me, she's a more likable character. She's at least sort of tries, at the beginning, and then she does become a bit, yeah, and then she does have an affair, which was, a bit kind of out of character, I suppose. But yeah, that wasn't so good. But generally speaking, I think she sort of tries to do the right thing, and so I think the relationship was doomed. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the setting of the because Jim's heart was never really in the
Exactly.
eco village, whereas it was really Martha's idea. So yeah, so it was probably doomed. And then also there's also some. It's not like a real ideal like eco village either. I mean, I had to sort of well, I didn't have to, but I decided to make it a bit more surrealist and because I think eco villages generally people there are usually quite nice, but I couldn't I think I remember like at uni like the head of creative writing department he said something like it's easier to create when there's a conflict sort of thing. So
Hmm.
I I don't know I think I suppose it is quite hard if you've got like loads of nice characters. How do you sort of interest the reader? I suppose there has to be some sort of maybe it doesn't have to be a twist, but I think it's easier if there's more sort of conflict and stuff going on. So, yeah, I think with all the difficult characters as well and strange characters, I don't think it was really going to work for them. Yeah,
Yeah. I like the rest of your cast too. It's very Dickensian in that these people are so eccentric and
yeah, they
they're
are.
so
Yeah,
committed to their eccentricity, but they think they're perfectly fine and normal. And I really got a kick out of that. And I find you as a person and your writing really witty, and but yeah, I think you really, in what it seems to me in reading your book, you really wanted to explore the possibilities of the eco living, and give it that humor, like you were saying. I really appreciated that.
well, thank you. Yeah, I think I did sort of go wrong in a way, though. I think that I mean, I certainly because I actually finished the book about maybe just over well about 2 years ago now. So I think I've changed quite a bit since then. I wanted it to be, I wanted it to have like quite a sort of raw, sort of almost like an, um, I mean, adolescence was a very long time ago now, but I wanted to have like an adolescent like sort of feel to it, like a sort of raw kind of, almost like a teenage breaking out kind of feel of like just getting away from the 9 to 5 and live and but I think well one of the problems I had was maybe it being a bit nonsensical to people. There were some times where there were quite a lot of points of view shifts and that kind of thing, which I think put people off a bit. But I think but in a way I kind of wanted it not all to make perfect sense. I wanted it to be without wanting to sound too like pretentious or whatever. I wanted it to sound like almost like a painting, like a sort of like a like a crazy like Jackson Pollock or something, where it
Yeah.
was like so I didn't want it to make all sense. I wanted it to have a surrealist element, and I wanted it to have but I think I maybe went a bit too far with it was maybe a bit too crazy for people to always follow it. But having said that, I mean, I actually edited it quite a lot. I mean, the original one was even more crazy. So
Right. Right.
so yeah, but but yeah, I think like my next book isn't quite my next writing sort of isn't quite so out there. It's a bit more readable, I think. Well, yeah. Whereas I think I was kind of like showing off a bit, really. Just wanted to kind of emulate some of my literary heroes, really. And it was just like, first novel kind of rawness, I think.
Right, right. Yeah, that's understandable. And so, who are
Yeah.
some of your literary heroes? I think one time you mentioned to me you do love George Orwell, and maybe there were some other ones that I'm not that are not coming to mind at the moment. But who are some of your literary heroes?
Yeah. So I would say, and particularly for that novel, I'd say, well, Henry Miller, I'd say was. I mean, he's very risque, a bit too risque for my liking, but but I just love his kind of gung ho style, really, and just very kind of yeah, it was just like very intellectual writer, very intelligent, and he's always like wandering around Paris and like having that bohemian writer lifestyle. So yeah, that was kind of he was part of it. I think Kurt Vonnegut as well, which is more, I guess you could say he's kind of borderline. Well, he's not classic sci-fi, but he's kind of borderline sci-fi, but which is not what I tend to read. But I just loved his organization, the way he organized texts in his novels, and it helped me a bit with my organization because mine was a bit sort of all over the place, and I just liked the way he structured his sort of paragraphs and stuff. I would say even further back than that would be yeah, yeah. So mainly American. Not, I mean, actually as well. I'd say American and Irish seems to be the two sort of novelists I tend to go like. Really into like James Joyce
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Sam Beckett and that kind of stuff. And so that was well, I'd read more of that since really, but that was a kind of an influence as well. And even before that, Poe was like Edgar Allan Poe was like my first real love, if you like, in the literary sense. And although that's more kind of horror based, I just
Hmm.
loved. Trying to think of the word, kind of it's almost like a sort of embroidered kind of style of writing, very eloquent
Yeah.
and um, ornate is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, ornate kind of, and yeah, just very heavy, very. And I've always been interested in like really kind of the most heavy, complex books I can lay my hands on. Like that's what really interests me, and trying to understand them. And heavy kind of psychological, heavy literary stuff really interests me. I mean, I don't always understand it, but I like the challenge of kind of
Sure.
yeah. It,
Yeah, I think when I was in high school, that's when I was first exposed to Poe, or maybe in middle school. I can't
mm,
remember the exact year, but I always loved him. It was always enjoyable to work through his sentences and really follow the characters through these really deep and dark psychological journeys. And I
mm,
feel like you would like William Faulkner. He was early 20th century, and especially in American universities, he's pegged more as a Southern author, and he focuses on Southern themes and some of the problems of the American South, and he loves these really long sentences, and you have to go back
yeah.
and find subject
Oh,
and the verb.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, yeah. I love Poe's sentence structure. It's brilliant, and Herman Melville's as well. Just like yeah, there's really long sentences, um, and the way just like it was a great window into his mind. You could tell he was, struggling so much or, had so much going on there. But yeah, what a talent. Yeah. Great,
Yeah,
great. Right. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
So tell us about what you're working on now. So you said you're working on a new book and that you have a different approach to it, different style going on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's quite humorous again, but it's actually more in that kind of humor a humorous kind of slant. It, it's yeah, it's a very silly book. Like it's the best one, but it doesn't have the yeah, it's a much lighter read than Jim and Martha. It's not. It doesn't really have many dark bits at all, really. There's not really any kind of eerie dark qualities to it. It's just a kind of and it's about a Chilean, like a sort of mad Chilean geologist who, well, he's actually British, but he's living in Chile, and yeah, he's just a bit crazy, really, and he then gets a partner, and she sort of has to cope with his long-suffering ways, and uh, but yeah, no, but he's just he's a bit kind of like a sort of Einstein character, like just but very kind of unique way of thinking about things. He's a real kind of he's like a sort of geological genius, but he's also like a complete weirdo as well. And yeah, and hopefully, I think as well, like just I think the world's been quite sort of serious recently with all this COVID stuff. So I just
Sure.
kind of thought like, yeah, this is just hopefully people find it like funny and so I've just finished like the main content of it, and so now I'm in the dreaded kind of editing process, which
Right.
I don't enjoy actually. Uh,
Really, I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, I do love it. I like to have something that's already more or less built in terms of the volume and then to find new opportunities. There's something
yeah,
about, I mean, I like the blank page. I think it's exciting and I like to bring something to life for the first time, but I think I like the revision stages a lot more. I think I get more enjoyment out of those. But I think more people are like you.
really. So like more than the actual writing itself.
I think so. I think so.
Wow, wow, yeah, that's impressive. Yeah.
I'm really interested in your second book, and of course, or your second novel, I should say, and I'm really excited for it to come out. And I wanted to comment. It seems like you're interested also in the dynamics in these romantic partnerships because you really place that front and center in the Jim and Martha novel, and
Mm.
it seems like that's a major component or a major plot thread in this second one as well.
Yeah, I suppose it is really. And yeah, it's a good question. I honestly, it's not like a conscious thing at all, actually. It's just the way it sort of happened. Um, I don't know why I've done it like that at all, really. I suppose, uh, yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of really is that I guess like I'm quite interested in the way people think, and I think it's quite nice to have almost like two, one male, one female character where you can sort of see um, how they both think maybe differently about things, and or equally how they sometimes think similarly. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, it's a good question because I honestly don't know like what made me choose to do it that way. It's just sort of how it happened, really. Yeah.
Well, it is fascinating. I think, I think I write a lot about relationships myself. I'm really fascinated by how men and women, relate to one another and how they misunderstand one another and attempt to get to a common understanding. And I did find in reading Jim and Martha that there were a couple moments where I kind of empathized with Jim, even though he's the less likable character. I thought,
Yeah.
through his eyes, when I was in his point of view, I really kind of saw Martha slightly as a little bit overly needy and annoying. But I felt sorry for her. I felt compassion for her and her plight. But at the same time, I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, Jim's actually got a point here. So
Yeah. Well, I think one of Martha's like biggest flaws is she's a bit naive sort of going into it. She's a bit kind of oh, it will all work out kind of thing. Whereas Jim's just got that very, almost like brutal kind of realism about
mhm.
everything. Well, almost it kind of goes too much the other way, really. But yeah, it's but yeah, he's very skeptical about all these kind of strange characters and strange ways of doing, or just different from like the norm of
Right.
like used to, and he's not shy about saying it. So I guess yeah, I suppose that's quite refreshing, really, because I suppose we do relate to. I mean, if we think about like comedians, I suppose we tend to like the ones that who just say it as it is, rather than the ones who like hide anything and just get it off their chest or whatever. So certainly Jim has that honesty about him, if you like. He almost doesn't. He just offends. He will offend people because he's so honest, but that honesty, I suppose, is quite rare to find, really, with people. Yeah, so he is honest, at least, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a question from MC Basil Ryder. Are Jim and Martha based on real people? I kind of had that question myself, so I'm glad that it has come up.
Oh, yeah. God, no, 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 no. None of my characters do actually. They're all. Um, I think. I think a bit like. Well, I think all of them probably have bits of me, and all of them. Well, and I think and then just like different people you meet along the way in your life, different parts of them that just sort of added on. So one character could be like half completely made up, and then like the other half would be like an amalgamation of like three people. It's just like yeah, that's how I sort of tend to write. Really, some of them can be like completely made up, even like stuff when I have, because I'm a bit of a lucid dreamer as well. Actually, I have quite sort of deep, vivid dreams, so I even get some ideas from that. Stuff
Wow.
that's nothing to do with like reality at all. So no, thank goodness, none of them are based on real people. Not completely directly based. None of them are directly based on any one real person.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is kind of I was really thinking about this question. I was really curious as to what you thought about this. Do you think that your work could be productively adapted to film or TV, like a series or something like that?
Oh God, I hope so. Yeah, but yeah, I just need some takers now.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably most authors' dream, isn't it? Really, to have their book like adapted into a film, or I think it would work. I mean, I think Jim and Martha wouldn't really work very well as a like a Hollywood blockbuster, because it's kind of, most people just aren't interested in like eco villages. But I think as a niche kind of, maybe like
Hmm.
British kind of independent film, I could see it like working in that regard. Um, but yeah, I need to get like more books, get more fame first, I think, before I get any offers for that kind of thing. But yeah, hopefully one day. Yeah, that's the dream, or
I
one of my
think,
dreams.
yeah, I think it would adapt pretty nicely
Mm,
to something in the more of the indie
mm,
realm. Because it does have that quirky feel to it, and I think the
yeah,
characters. I think see maybe a series I think would be good because we could see the relationships develop over more than can be accommodated in a 2 hour film. But yeah,
yeah,
I would love to see it come to life like that, and I think I think those of us who are writing stories do want to see that happen, like some sort of film or TV adaptation. But then we also dread it because what if they don't get it right? What if the makers of this film or TV series don't get it right and they just get it all wrong and it messes it all up, and then people like the TV show better or something?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, I honestly, no, it's a good point. I mean, I never really think in terms of like TV series, because I don't really. Very occasionally, I'll watch a TV series because I know how involved I'll get, and then it will just like,
Take
it
over
will
your
just,
life.
yeah, exactly, yeah. I'll just get to. So I mean, I would do it. I would watch occasionally, but that's interesting actually. Yeah, I'd never thought of any of my books in a sort of TV series format. I've just thought, okay, maybe it'd be good as a film, but yeah, I never thought of it in like. It's a good, yeah. It's an interesting interesting way of thinking of it as well. Yeah, but I guess as you say, like with a TV series, you get more time to delve into the characters a bit more, and
Yeah.
um, yeah.
So MC Basil Ryder wants the synopsis really quick. I'll
Oh,
take the liberty of saying my version of it, and then of course Joel
okay.
can say can say his. But yeah, what I took MC Basil Ryder is you get this couple that we were talking about this at the beginning. There, the relationship is not all that functional, and then they end up on this like an eco village. Is that what you call it? Yeah, eco village. And then the relationship kind of falls apart, and you've got all these other characters who are quirky and eccentric, and you know, maybe the eco village itself is not all that functional as a community and as a way of life. What would you add to that, Joel?
Yeah, I think that's a yeah. It's hard to think of this synopsis without giving too much away, though. I think as well. I don't, yeah, because like all the like plot spoilers and all of that. But yeah, no, I think you've yeah, you've said a lot there, really. And they're just kind of going from a normal 9 to 5 normal flats in London, and um one character, Martha, is um, more interested than her partner Jim, and then they go off to the eco village. But it's not quite as rosy as they made out because of the different characters, because of the different environment, and eventually, without sort of giving too much away, then there's other problems that happen on the in the eco village that mean it's very difficult place to live, not just for Jim and Martha, but for the other residents as well. And there's also a lot of problematic relationships with the other characters as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's really, um, yeah, I think that's pretty much that's pretty much the premise of it. And then just to sort of see how they get on, see how they cope for all those trials, really.
So, one last question for you, Joel. I've really appreciated having you on and getting to talk with you in this format. What would you say to writers who are maybe they have a book idea, they're just starting out, or they're putting some ideas down on paper? What would you say to encourage them and maybe even offer a little, you know, tip or a pointer or two to keep up their efforts and write their best?
Yeah, I think it's that's quite an individualist kind of thing, really, and I think everyone has to find the best way for themselves because I think everyone's different in that regard. And so I think, but actually, that's easier said than done. Actually, finding the best method that works for you. So I think trial and error is a good way, or you know, listening to Julie Tyler, seeing what method she comes up with. Because yeah, you've got plenty of ideas of that as well. And yeah, and just listening to other writers, how do they do it? How do they get motivated? And your heroes as well. Your hero writers, maybe I know that they do some of those like master classes these days as well, don't they? I've never really seen them, but I've heard of them. So there's all sorts of tips on there, and I think as well sometimes you just have to write something down. I think you can. There's always a planning is good and has a purpose, but there's I think like psychologically speaking, there's also a problem with over planning. It's not a healthy thing, and you can just drive yourself crazy just trying to plan every single little detail. But like with writing, like in life, things never quite go to plan anyway. They have take a curveball, or they've got all sorts of different directions that they go in. So a plan is fine, but sometimes you just got to trust your instincts and just get something on the paper, and then go from that. Really, what can you then, once you've written something down, what can you then um, find from that really, like a little, it's almost like a little maze really, and yeah, I think that's the best advice I could give, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes we fear the unknown and fear uncertainty, like what's actually going to show up when I put this pencil, have
Mm,
make contact with the paper or put my fingers on the keyboard. What's going to show up, and am I going to like it? And what do I
yeah.
do if I don't? And we have to, I think we can have an agenda or a goal for a writing session. Like what do I more or less what do I want to do here? But we've got to be okay with what shows up and then be willing to keep working through it. Um, in the moments that come after. So I agree with you on that, and also
Mm,
agree with listening to other writers and staying connected to them, because I think as a community we can offer each other support and encouragement, and just share different approaches. And I've definitely taken plenty of tips from other people. I got one recently on being able to write a synopsis, and I was taking a very type A approach, very control oriented. I'm a little more controlling than perhaps others. But then this person gave me a tip to let go a little bit and look more at the birds, look at it from a bird's eye view, and that helped a lot. So I appreciated that tip. And had I not asked for help, I would still be trying to control my way through every single thing. So I definitely agree.
mm, mm. Yeah, and yeah, I think like mantras and or little things you can say to yourself to help you get in the mood for it as well, like to make sure you're doing something every day can help as well. And yeah, there's so many different tips and tricks, aren't there? So many
Yeah.
different ways. Yeah.
So Joel, thank you so much for joining me on Instagram today. I know it's a little later there in the UK than it is on the
Yeah.
East Coast of the United States. So I appreciate your time and your energy and the exchange that we've had. Is there anything that you would like to say as we close out?
Uh, no, just to say, yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I've always enjoyed the channel ever since I discovered it. So, yeah, a real privilege to be invited on, and yeah, long may the storyboard continue.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining, those of you who watched live. And of course, the replay will be available shortly. So thank you all and happy writing. And I'll see you all very soon. Bye.
Okay.